you can do that. You can be a creative if you want.
Yeah.
But it has to be. I need to have a certificate, something. It has to be through university.
Yeah.
Like you don't just go in the world and be a creative.
Yeah.
I feel like people around me, they already know that I do storytelling. Maybe not the strategy part. And a friend of my dad also said, the longer your title become, the more it feels made up. Like a CEO is someone that we respect. What is a head of storytelling and strategy? And so I tell you, I'm just like, I'm a head of strategy. Events I'm involved with. I feel like some people that are interested in my work in photography, like I've been commissioned last year for portraits of Gael Faye, Gael Faye?
Yes. I know.
And it was portraits of him in Nyamirambo, and the people that commissioned me, I don't think they're interested in what I'm doing with, And I tried something, and so I did try things that didn't work out.
Yeah.
I've been a sound operator for one gig. Never again. It's horrible. You have to hold a thing like that. Yeah. No, I did that for a whole documentary. Never again. But just to say that every new hat that I've been adding always has been because I needed money at the time. Someone said, like, I think you can do a great job.
And the money was attached to that new hat. Welcome to another episode of the Lucreative Africa Podcast. It's Dami again, your host as always. And today, our guest in the house is Cynthia Butare. So I'm going to give a little description of who Cynthia is. So Cynthia is a storyteller and a strategist whose career has been shaped by a deep interest in the power of stories and the many ways that they can influence how we see people, places, and culture. Since then, she has built a career at the intersection of storytelling, creativity, and strategy. And she has worked across freelance, creative studio work, and also formal employment. And she has worked with organizations like the Rwanda Development Board and also international NGOs like Y Labs, as well as our own independent practice. Across the different chapters of her career, Cynthia has moved between independent creative work, entrepreneurship, and employment. Cynthia, I'm not sure I did justice to the introduction, but I will. So nice.
Usually people read a bio that I have tried. I was listening, I'm like, I'm definitely not the one who wrote this. That's nice. It's a bit intimidating, but yeah, sure.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for being here, for saying yes to my invite. I'm really happy to have you here. But as I said, I don't think I did justice to the intro, so... and I also know that you're a storyteller, so I cannot tell the story better than the storyteller.
That was great.
I'll hand over the mic to you to just, tell us your story. So, tell us how things started from Cynthia, who was born and raised in Switzerland, and then, how's your journey looked like from that point up to who you are today and the work that you do.
Okay, sure. So, my name is Cynthia. I was born and raised in Geneva, Switzerland, to Rwandan parents. So Geneva is francophone, hence the French accent. And I lived in Switzerland. So I have two brothers, two sisters. I grew up with cousins that are also here in Kigali now. And growing up in Switzerland with them, what I would say is that I think... So talking about early 90s, I don't think we actually thought that one day we'll be living here.
Yeah.
We lived in Switzerland as a minority. Geneva is quite international, so I've never been like the only black person in my class.
Yeah.
But it's still, I don't know, it's still a thing. And I think that has always be part of the work I was doing. At least at the beginning, I think I was very interested about discrimination because these are things that you experience.
Yeah.
But before getting into that, what I would say is that I grew up in a family where we had a camcorder, and so I had an uncle. He had a very big camcorder. So those camcorders that back in the days, you needed space to have a VHS. So that makes it very big.
Yeah.
And my cousins, Celeste, Angelique, being a bit older than me, they were allowed to use it. and I was so interested, and I think we just got used in the habit of watching our own VHS, our birthdays, Christmas, and to me that was just, I don't know, very fun. But I was just not allowed to use it because I was young, because I was small as well. I was very petite. I was very short.
Yeah.
And I'm only 1 year apart with my cousin Angelique, and I was just copy pasting everything that she was doing, everything that Celeste Angelique would do. I had to do the same, and so they have a younger sister, and my brother is the same age, and the fact that I would be grouped with them, to me as a 5-year-old, and yet my cousin and my brother, they are 2 years old. It was so annoying. And so one day, my dad, he bought his own camcorder, and so things changed a bit. Like technology evolved, and so it was smaller. It was not a VHS; it was still a cassette, but it was smaller. I don't know how we call them, and so it was just lighter. And that day, I decided that camcorder would be mine. And I think from there, it became a thing where I was just documenting everything. Like my dad would just let me use it all the time. And so one of my sisters, she got married last year, and I remember a friend of my dad actually told me, like, I remember you in the 90s, like, just documenting everything. And I was thinking, like, how can your dad let you using technology like that? And to me, that was funny that, you know, for in his mind, my dad kind of had an assistant just photographing things or capturing things. And so, I think it just got normal around my family members that I would be taking pictures, taking videos, which is something I do today with my Instagram stories. And so with that, I did that for a long time. Also, I was back in the days that my family, my brothers and sisters, my cousins were part of a traditional dance group. And even there, I was capturing quite a lot of stuff. But I think doing that, it never got into my mind that I will actually be doing that. For me, that was not a real job. And so I was studying languages. And eventually, when I started uni, so I moved to the UK at the age of 21. I lived in Sheffield, Manchester, then London. And I was studying communication. That's what I did. My degree was in communication. And so for me, I thought I would start with that. And eventually I thought I was going to be a French teacher. Staying in the UK, at some point I really thought I was going to spend my life in the UK. So I stayed for 6 years. And so in my final year, doing my degree, I had to do a documentary. And I decided to do one about black hair. I think my experience being a minority in Switzerland and then in the UK, I could see like a common thread. Some things were very different. But still, like that, the experience was the same, and that really caught my interest. And so that's back in 2011. And so for me, it was nice to see, especially in the UK, a lot of black women wearing their natural hair, which in a way that I had not really seen before. And I thought, like, let me do this one creative project, commit to it, because it's going to be my last time doing something creative ever, because then I have to find a real job. Exactly. And so obviously it was not a film school, but for the dedication, and I guess for my lecturer, just the fact that she learned new things, I ended up having the best mark in my class. I got an award. And so I think for my dad, he was like, well, since you'll have to do your master's, why not exploring that path? But for him, that was very clear. You can do that. You can be a creative if you want. But it has to be, I need to have a certificate, something. It has to be through university. Like you don't just, go in the world and be a creative. So I was like, okay, sure. And so I left Manchester for London to do my master's in documentary making. And the course that I chose was very much about studying the different forms of documentaries, but also how all the work that you do in pre-production, you write your project. And so it was not so much about the technical part, because a lot of people assumed, at least even in my family, they think that this is where I've learned how to use the camera and everything. Not really. But I'm glad that I had that experience. And so I think I've seen different kind of work, how you can be creative with a form that is non-fictional. To me, that was interesting. And so as I was doing my master's, I did a piece called Ishima from Bloodshed to Grace. And so it's a portrait around a Rwandan genocide survivor who was living in London, and he had found therapy through ballet dancing. And it was kind of a happy accident, I would say, in the sense that was someone that I met in the train, in the tube, like just by accident. We're looking at each other, and at some point he got to me and said, like, "Are you Rwandan?" And so we became friends like that. And so when I started filming, for me it was just about him being a black ballet dancer. I was still about that thing about being a minority. And so I think with me being Rwandan now, he opened up about his life experience, and it became something that was quite dear to my heart. And so that stayed with me. And I think even to this point, because when I have the liberty like to be a bit creative with what I'm doing, I'm thinking about an experience where I had someone opening up to me. And I think that's something I do cherish when I do interviews now. That's always an angle that I'm looking for. So and so doing that master's now, I had to do a project like I did for my degree, and I chose to do one about the diaspora moving back in Rwanda. And so so we're talking about 2013, and so we were about to have the 20th commemoration. And to me, I thought I want to, since I had done that piece with Ishimwa, I thought I'd like to do something about Rwanda. I'd like to do something about Rwanda, but I'm not sure what to do. And so at the time, I could see some people that I had met on holidays just moving back. And to me, that was interesting because, again, like growing up in the West, I never thought that that would ever be possible. I think being in London, there was a whole movement of Africans going back, and so we've been talking about the brain drain and now the reverse brain drain. But to me, these were countries like Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Kenya, but just not Rwanda. And so so I decided to go to Kigali for 2 months. I had been to Rwanda quite a lot, but that's different being here on a holiday and living here and working here. And I approached a few people, and I started like that, but then quickly I realized that it was so personal as a story that 2 months was just not going to be enough. And so I submitted something with, for uni, but then I decided to be here. I thought it was going to be a couple of months, and now it's been 12 years. And so I never finished what I wanted to do. I still have the raw footage. And I really want to do something with it one day, but that's how I got here. And quickly I had to find ways to, pay my bills. And so my very first job has been working as a videographer for Lucreative Studio. I did that for a year. And then I freelanced for a bit. Then KCC got launched. That was 2016. With that, the MICE industry was very active, and so having studied documentary making, my plan was to become an editor. That's because that's something that I enjoy, and I thought I was going to do an internship in editing, maybe for a broadcast back in the UK. That was my plan. And so being in Kigali and being in a market that is smaller, I couldn't have the luxury of saying like, oh no, I'm just a video editor. And I had to learn how to take videos. I had a DSLR, so that's what I was doing. And I don't know how familiar you are with the work of Ilum. Oh yeah, but I think you have interviewed Philippe.
Oh yeah, I have actually.
And so I had been on the field a lot with Philippe and Gael, and them being photographers. I think what I learned from that experience was, the frame, composition, how to think about those things. Because for me, I was more interested in getting interviews, getting a connection with people, and then I will figure it out in editing.
Yeah.
And so I think it has really trained my eye in a way where I've been exposed a lot to their work in a way where I had to start thinking about what is my voice.
Yeah.
As a creative, at the time I was just not comfortable with photography. But I think it has definitely had an impact on how I started viewing this kind of work.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so a lot of work with the MICE industry, also with NGOs being female, there was a lot of stuff to do with girls.
Yeah.
That's what got me busy. I've done a lot of wedding videos as well. And then eventually I started working for RDB as a communication analyst. That was the official title, but really missing there what I was doing was working closely with service providers, because obviously with the size of the campaigns of Visit Rwanda, it was not the work of one person.
Yeah.
I think the largest groups that I've had been 15 camera operators, photographers and videographers for Kwitizina or Chogam.
Yeah.
And then and I was being the bridge between the communication division that I was part of and the service provider, and making sure that things are being well translated on both sides.
Yeah.
Being able to give feedback that is actionable, that was coming from my colleagues or from management. And so with RDB, I found myself working on anything partner related. So we're talking about Arsenal, PSG, BAL, eventually Chogam, and then I stayed for 4 years. Then after that, I started working for an NGO called Y Labs, where I was senior communication specialist. I think that was the title. I think what is going to stay with me about the experience is just how the work can be organized. I felt that there are a lot of tools that we were using, management tools, things like, I already knew Slack, but I think for me what stayed with me is definitely the use of Trello. Trello boards, and I think I spent 6 good months just challenging them about the use of Trello, and now I'm a big advocate for it because you can really organize your work, and use it as a tracker, and just how the work was delegated. But then, other than that, I think when I decided to leave RDB, I thought like, okay, I can do anything, which was not true, and I think the NGO type of work, I think it was just not connecting with what I do best.
Yeah.
I think I can be a service provider for an NGO, but not being an internal team of an NGO.
Yeah.
And so that experience ended after a year and a half. Then I freelanced for a bit, and then I joined TORI as a head of storytelling and strategy. That's the full title, but I tend to say head of strategy because I don't know. I feel like for the storytelling part, I feel like people around me, they already know that I do storytelling. Yeah. Maybe not the strategy part. And a friend of my dad also said, the longer your title become, the more it feels made up. Like a CEO is someone that we respect. What is a head of storytelling and strategy? And so I tell you, I'm just like, I'm a head of strategy. And so I joined, it's very recent. I joined TORI 2 months ago. And TORI has just celebrated 6 years. It's been it got launched 6 years ago. It works on really big campaigns for Amahoro Stadium, BK Arena, Nyadungu, Radisson Blue, and so me that I was looking at how I could focus on strategy, like I've been served.
Yeah.
That's the full story. And then somewhere in between, I launched Imigani.
Yeah. We'll come to that in more detail down the line. But yeah, I mean, wow, I think I can see connections though, like in every part of your journey. I feel
Yeah,
like I can see a lot of connections.
I'm happy that you're saying that.
Something that I think like just cuts across everything you were doing to some extent. It involved some storytelling and also like creativity. Although I mean, we'll argue that a lot of things involve creativity regardless of what role you are in. But I think like a certain kind of creativity, like creativity in communicating something. I think that cuts across like everything from like documentary filmmaking to the communications roles that you held. I mean now storytelling is still like it cuts across everything in some way, and I think like that's like the one thing that, in my opinion, that like that's the one web connecting everything together. But then yeah, I think I don't know, like when I hear when I heard the story, I don't, it's not a situation where it's like I heard how you started and then I'm surprised where you ended up. Like it makes sense. It makes sense where you are to me. Like in my opinion, and yeah, I think just also something like the question I also wanted to ask now. You kind of had a life in Switzerland, and then the UK, and then Rwanda. So you've had like those three chapters of your life in those different places. But do you feel like any particular one of those contributed like the most to your let's say your creativity instincts today, or like who you are as a creative today, or it's like it's a balanced combination of all of your experiences in those three places?
It's a balance of all of these things. One that a place where I haven't lived, but I think we can still kind of put in brackets. It's Cameroon, is Yaoundé. Like when I left Geneva, my dad had to move to Yaoundé for work. So he used to work for ILO, International Labour Office. And my entire family moved there for 7 years, and so I'm the only one that has not lived there. So my 4 siblings went to school there, and so I was doing a lot of back and forth. And getting to Yaoundé in 2008, that was my first time ever visiting a different country, different African country than Rwanda. And so I think that to me, the fact that I would see my parents, my siblings in the day-to-day in Yaoundé, and yet I had always assumed that my entire life would be in Geneva. I think it prompted some things where, about the things that I wanted to do. And then again, I was in the UK and I was doing my documentary on black hair. I don't know, I said that before. So the documentary was about black hair, and it's called Kicking It with the Kinks. And I think he didn't think I was doing that. I thought about it seriously. Through the documentary first about the diaspora coming back. But yeah, eventually I said like, well, since I'm done with school, I'm going to Kigali. I did have a return flight, but I had it a year after. That's the plan. And then he was very worried because I think we hear a lot about that story of moving back being celebrated. Which it is, but then I think for him was like, our country has a history. Some of us left the country. And then because of vibes, my dad doesn't say vibe, but basically that's what he meant. Because of vibes, like this is how you just decided to move to Kigali, and then how have you even prepared yourself? And he knew I had zero saving. And so and the 2 first years were not really fun. And I guess I feel like I'm not answering your question. To answer your question, I feel that today what I'm doing is definitely a mix of different things. And I think that first of all, being a creative, you pour so much of yourself into the work. And I don't know if seeing my work, you would say like, oh, this is Rwandan, this is Swiss. But for me as a person, I know that when I'm here, I'm connecting more and more with the space. And then when I go back to Switzerland, when I go back to Geneva, that is happening as well. And I know for me that anything creative started to think about it in a way that is a bit more serious, started in the UK. And I've met a lot of people, a lot of creatives in the UK that were doing that as a living. which I had never really had the opportunity to experience being in Geneva. And so I think it's a mix of different things. And I think I think Yaoundé has influenced few things as well.
So it's a blend of everything.
It's a blend of everything.
Yaoundé, which I didn't know. My research didn't get to that to that point, but yeah, I think that makes sense. But also just on, you were talking about like the title, your current title now, head of storytelling and strategy at TORI, and that's also something I wanted to talk about a bit more, but more in general about the concepts of storytelling and strategy. So I think, some of the things that you have done, they are a bit more, I think, generally more known, like documentary filmmaking. I think it's something that's more understood. But when it comes to like storytelling, I think it's a very broad thing, and people have different definitions of what it means to them. So that's one. Storytelling, how would you define it? And how would you define yourself as a storyteller? And then the second one is strategy. So I think
that's a very broad question.
Yeah, that's another so two things. Maybe let's start with the first one, storytelling, and then we'll come to strategy. Okay.
I think storytelling can be anything. I'm sure if we're looking into the documentary, it would simply be like the art of telling stories. But then I think the reason why we are bringing that concept into things like marketing or communication is because it's a way of connecting with your audience. It's for the audience like to feel like the material is relatable. And so I feel that to put it at the very basic level, a story needs to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I think to me, dealing with a lot of clients, they can be mine, they can be my employers, but over the years, it has always been, clients wanting to sell, and with that, they end up with content that is very salesy, very forced, very flat as well. And so how do you deconstruct everything to give more texture for the content to stand for something? And it takes for me, it takes a lot of years and experience to understand how to do that, to explain to a client how we're going to do things differently and why and how it's going to perform better for them. And so storytelling, is the art of telling stories, is the art of grabbing your audience as well. But I think with the landscape of social media changing a lot, things are being very blurred these days. I think you can have adverts now. They can look like a short film. You can have a short film that has a lot of product placements, for example. And I think for me, I got very interested about the intersection of everything. Being here, I think I got here realizing that the way I thought I was going to grow after my master's is very different, and that's because of the size of the market. That's because of purchasing power as well. And so I thought that, okay, sure, I'll find myself in the marketing space and with people that would like to sell, but then how can I make sure everything that I've learned is not going to go into waste? And so I started researching a lot about branded content, and I can give you the example of it's an ad, but it looks like a short film. It's called The Door. You can find it on YouTube. And so at the time, so the main subject of that film is Gabrielle Union. And at the time, she was doing Being Mary Jane. I don't know if you followed that series.
I know of it. But
you know of it?
I know of it, but I didn't follow it. I just know of it. I've heard the name. I've seen maybe a poster or something, but I didn't follow it.
And so that thing got launched when Being Mary Jane was very popular. And it's a silent film. I think the entire music is from Guapele. She's a soul singer. And so the whole thing, the way it's crafted, is very niche. The target audience for that is very clear. It's the same people that watch Being Mary Jane. And so I think it's the story of a lady that got engaged and didn't get married, or got married and then the marriage ended abruptly. And so I think it's probably 10 minutes, but everything is very aesthetic. It's done with taste. I think the director of it is Ava DuVernay.
Okay.
But when you watch it at the end, it's an ad for Miu Miu. And I think it was very I don't have the money to buy Miu Miu stuff, but I think it was very convincing the way it was done.
If I did have the money, I will buy it.
Exactly, because you're like, I am Gabrielle Union, I am Big Mary Jane.
Yeah.
And so I feel observing things like that really got my interest. And then doing more research, I realized that actually that aspect is not new. There's a film. Do you know the film called The Gods Must Be Crazy?
Yes. I think I watched it actually.
I watched it as a kid, but then I was reading a thing as an adult where I realized that actually it was product placement for Coca-Cola. Because if you remember the beginning of the movie,
true.
right? There's a bottle of a Coke
until now that you just
being dropped
yeah.
from the sky by a pilot in a plane.
Yeah.
And then it gets to a village, right? With I don't know, a tribe. I don't know how to explain.
I think it was like a local
and then
tribe. And
there's a whole, the whole intrigue it's about this.
Yeah.
But me, I remember that thing as a film, but actually it was product placement. And even today, I think I watched it as a kid, but I think it was done even before I was born. So I think that film is more than 40 years old.
Yeah.
But just to say that in 2026, what I do remember is the plane, the bottle of Coke, and the village.
Yeah.
So it stays in your mind. So as a consumer, it does something to your mind.
Yeah.
And so for me, I thought like, oh, maybe, am I losing integrity as an artist if I mix my craft and marketing and sales and stuff like that? But I thought like that equation is what is going to allow me like to pay my bills and to still be a creative. And so I think the struggle that I've been having even until now is just how I'm going to balance everything, because I've happened to be in places where people will be like, oh, but no, she's a photographer. And in other places where people will be like, no, like she does communication stuff, like why is she talking about art? And so with that, for me, my idea, even if it's a bit out there, was to make sure is to find ways like what I do is visible, so that people, even if they don't know how to talk about my work, at least they would say like, oh, she does a bit of everything. A bit communication, content, photography. For me, that's good. At least the fact that I can be in different rooms and still be credible, that's okay with me. Even if I cannot do everything,
I think that's a very good, especially that Coke falling from the sky example from that movie. I think that's a very good example of storytelling. It's like they're not trying to just put it in your face. They make it a part of the script, a part of the story. But when you finish watching it, there's something that's left in your mind that you didn't. I think I've heard like it's left in your mind without your permission. Like you didn't really want, but now you know, and and it's stuck there, and it's something like you've watched it years ago, but today that's the one thing that you still remember.
Exactly.
Like in a movie that was probably like hours long or something, but that's stuck to you. And I think that definitely it resonates in other things too. I know that there's probably, today, social media posts that I've come across, like, and ads too, that you didn't know they were ads initially. You just watched it to be entertained, but then there's something they have shown in that ad, one product that has stuck to you, or even movies that we are watching, and like there's something that has stuck to you just because they just briefly showed it or put it in like the main character's way or something in that movie, and now you like it's in your head, or you go and Google what's this thing that this person was using, and that's the way that they've gotten you to like get some interest in their product. And I think storytelling, as you said, it can be used in many, like beyond just the traditional ways that it is used in entertainment, but also it can be used to like put things in the minds of someone who is coming across that story, and that's where it applies to like marketing and communication. So
but to add to that for storytelling, I think that, you know, when I think about either a campaign or a piece of content, in general, I like having a framework, at least in my head. But I think I should have printed somewhere, because I think it helps. At times you know, you have to do storytelling and you're like, where do I even start? Do I even understand what I am communicating about? And so I like to think about, you know, the location. Is it clear? Do we know where that is? And so I guess it depends on, you know, the format. But then if you're talking about videos, for me, you have to make sure that we do have establishing shots. So seeing a little bit of the surroundings, seeing the building, and so having something a little bit gradual. And then having a sense of, you know, the surroundings, and then and having a sense of the location inside as well. Then you have location, you have your subjects. You know, can we have maybe one main protagonist or maybe two? I think it helps you having a sense of focus, you know. Then thinking about emotions. What are the emotions that we are supposed to feel? That's 3, 4, and details. What makes it recognizable as a space, as people? I used to have the framework somewhere, but I have this 4. I think I have 6. I'll search that for you. But I like thinking about those things, because I think it makes the content more specific, the message more specific, and but also different, because at times when you work for clients, honestly, the key messages are the same throughout, and they have to be. But then you don't want the people, followers, audiences, clients to have a fatigue of the content. So how can you make it refreshing every time? And I think having that kind of framework, it's been a while that I haven't thought about it, but I know I had 6 elements. But
I mean, I get it. And there's also, I recently read a book too about like storytelling, and it kind of went into, obviously I think those pillars, all those, a lot of people have like different pillars to what has to, like, that they define as what makes up a story. But I think like the key ones that I've heard that always stuck to me was like what you said initially, like it has to have a beginning, middle, end, subject. Subject could be a protagonist, antagonist, but there has to be that, and there has to be like, you know, the I mean, now because of short attention spans and all of that, I think more than before there needs to be a very strong hook at the beginning or something. Because I think initially, like earlier movies and like story, they will start out like at a level, but at a level like how do I put it, on like a very low level, like just introducing the character, introducing the setting, the location, the story. But now it's like you have to start from here and go down. Like you have to start from it, because if not, people will just like, if the first few minutes don't captivate them, they are just gonna like go. So like most movies you watch, or books, I mean, stories are in different forms, but like they have to start with like that hook. And I think even this podcast will start today with a hook, but like you have to start from there and then go down, and then you kind of you build it up to like a certain, you know, climax point where it's like it's maybe it's a battle, or it's like a very significant event happening in the life of like whoever the protagonist or subject is, and then you kind of go down and there's like a resolution. It's something I also read in the book, but like I've read different definitions as to like what stories are, and that's why I'm like, what is your own definition of storytelling? And like you shared that. So I think now we move on to the other thing, which was strategy. And I want to ask you like a twofold question when it comes to the strategy part, because that one, I think even less than storytelling, is not very clear to everyone what it means to be a strategist. Like when I think of it, I think a strategy is a plan, like a plan to execute something or to reach a certain goal or objective. But then how do you first of all define what it is to you to be a strategist, but then also how do you sell like strategic thinking or being a strategist? How do you communicate the value of what you are doing, like to someone who wants to hire you or who you want to work for?
I think to start by the last question that you asked,
Yeah.
I do feel that comes with the network that you have as well, and then if the campaigns that you have worked on, people do know those campaigns, and if they have people that they can reach out and just ask about your performances and how you work. Because there's a time 2 years ago I was wondering if I should just relocate to Geneva, and because I haven't lived there since 2008, what I realized is that I'll probably have to step down quite a bit, because I don't have a professional network anymore. I do have my friends. It still feels home, very much so, but I stopped living there at the age of 21. And yeah, I definitely have people like to have a drink with, but not that. And so to position myself as a strategist there would be it is not impossible, but it would be challenging. And so I think that your network in this type of sector is very key. So I would say that. But now for strategy, how to define strategy? I think for me, at least when it comes to content, is to have the ability, putting on paper how everything connects, and having the common thread. And so for me, there's a lot of boring work that I do, and people, when they look at it, they're like, what's that for? But to me, is the foundation. It's understanding what an organization is about, the vision, the mission, but then also the business objectives, the key messages, and then with that, understanding who we are talking to. And I like thinking about different target groups, because people are tempted like, oh, the general public. No, you're talking to specific people.
I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of that.
As a rule of thumb, I like thinking about 6 groups. And then where are they? So you have to think about your channels. So one of them, yes, is social media, but then you also have to think about offline channels. And so that could be conferences, that could be events, that could be one-on-one interactions. It could be anything, but how are you going to meet people outside of Instagram? And so, which is something that I'm trying to think about myself as well, because I feel I'm such a Instagrammer. And it really helps when you understand the different channels where people are going to engage with the work that you do. And then when it comes to social media now, do you have to be on X? Do you have to be on TikTok? It really depends on the organization and what you're selling as services or products. But it's important that you understand the culture of each platform, because I think we are guilty at times to just repurpose everything that we do on Instagram and making them as TikToks and videos on LinkedIn. And I think what helps as well is thinking about global benchmarks, and see what they're doing on their own platform and the type of content. I think it gives an idea of what type of content is relevant to what you do. And then after that, you need to get into the habit of doing performance tracking, because there you're going to get so much insight into what resonates with people. And in addition to that, I like thinking about, have you heard of IDA? The framework?
Attention, something,
interest, desire, and action. And so maybe you don't have to apply it all the time, but I think it's important that you understand that some content is going to be great at generating awareness. Some content is going to be great for people like to get more of an interest in paying attention more. And some content for those that already you already have their attention, is going to prompt them to make an action. And that's how you get your conversion. And so when you start paying attention to those things, that's how you start seeing sales happening. And so then it helps you like to refine more, so that it happens more and more for yourself. And how you sell strategy, I think I made the mistake at some point, like to just propose that service to anyone. I had not applied everything I'm saying about strategies for myself, right? And what I realize now is that strategy at that level, and having the luxury like to spend as much time, having the luxury of spending that kind of time for that type of work can only be for large organizations.
Yeah.
And so there was a point being self-employed lately where I thought like, maybe I should I should be a consultant for agencies or be staff to provide that kind of work, because doing it for SMEs, it had to be combined with execution.
Yeah.
And the danger, the trap of when you're doing that, where you can do the strategy and then you can also do execution, people are just going to pay more attention to execution.
Yeah. Fair.
And to me, I think maybe it was my ego, but I think it was a little bit hard because you will be told like, I don't understand, so and so are able like to produce that much, and yet I don't know, they get paid 150K per month, and you're like, yeah, but also I was introducing you to people. We've had an influencer marketing strategy. We did A, we did B, but then they will look at things that to them feel tangible.
Yeah.
And so I think that being able like to do different things, it's nice that people can see that in you, but how are you going to make sure that the way you package your know-how, each of those sockets, like, they can be seen as something valuable, and not like, oh, she's a strategist that happens to do photography, or she's a photographer that happens to also do photography. And I think with that, that's how people like really tried to negotiate to a point where it's just not making sense to just how much I had to pay my rent and just things in the day to day. And so
I think it's that's definitely a good intro into like what content strategies, which is like where I think you've been specific on. But also I understand the aspect of when, you can, I think I get where people can say that like they see, as you said, they see more of like the execution than the planning. And sometimes I feel like some people can downplay like the planning side of things. Like, I want to see that. I want to see the social media posts. I just want to see it and see people like engage with it or interact with it. But they're not really thinking about, do you even need that social media post where it is like at that moment? And they don't. I think a lot of people don't see the relevance of like the actual thinking. It's not just putting things out there. It's about why you are putting it out there and where you are putting it and when. Like, there's a lot of things that are involved, and those matter almost more than what you are putting out itself. And like, that's where the strategy comes into play. And I think I have like worked in communications, and I know that in my early days too, I started out like I was just an executor, like tactics, just post it and make sure it's up, and once it's up, that means you have done your job, and if people like it, they comment on it, you have done your job. But like in the end, there is always like an end goal or objective that the things you are posting are supposed to be tied to. Is it helping you achieve that objective? And that's where like the strategy comes in, is to make sure that you connect everything towards the main goal or like the objective, and make sure that whatever you're putting out, how you're planning to put those things out, they actually feed into like your main goal or objective. Otherwise, you're just wasting resources, and you're not actually, or at least you're not using the resources as efficiently as possible. But I think from what you're saying to you, probably I would have had to do a lot of education, like in your like educating people on why that strategy is important to them.
I think for me, having worked on large campaigns made me realize how much of a consequence can have a good or bad decision. Maybe if I had just done work with SME, I would have not seen it in a way that is that tangible. But it's just that I've worked on a campaign where we had to try different things. It was doing not the lockdown, but it was doing during COVID, doing things for Visit Rwanda and with at the time maybe the airport was still closed, trying different things, and we had to come up with a lot of content, and yet, people were just not traveling to Rwanda. It was just not possible with COVID and the airport being closed. And so you start reading because things could be repetitive. And so a colleague will have an idea, another colleague will have an idea. And at some point, like without even having the language, we didn't know what, at the time, I don't think we knew what influencer marketing was.
Yeah.
And we started working with celebrities, people were having a lot of followers on Instagram. For dedicated activations. And there was one time, I don't know, I was part of that conversation where someone said how that specific location that we did with an influencer, the weekend after, they had an increase of 40% or something like that.
Yeah.
And so that was just a different combination of different things. We had found for that thing the right equation. And to me, to hear that a place got an increase of 40% the week after, that was amazing as an insight to see that if the idea that you have is effective, then this is how it's going to reflect on the other side. And so there's that. That was a good decision.
Yeah.
The opposite of that, having a bad decision. I find myself in a discussion with I don't want to be too specific because I don't know what to say who they are, but I would say a place that you can go, and they decided to go to do influencer marketing, and they worked with a lot of influencers. So it was a campaign where they had a lot of money, and so they're like, okay, we want awareness, we want people, we want visibility. Sure, let's have plenty of influencers, and they did. Sure, the campaign was very visible. The issue with that is that people started going to that place to get photographed, to do content, to do TikTok. And the problem with that is that they were maybe ordering drinks, but it would be a Fanta, and then that's it. And so, from a business perspective, it was just not. It was a fan. I don't know, but it was just not what they're looking for. And so, to me, that's why you do need strategy. Because what you want is your content to create conversion, and the conversion that you are looking for. And I think for me, when I find myself working on those campaigns, what I'm looking for, yes, it's what I was saying before about how I would start the very foundational evergreen strategy, but then paying attention to those benchmarks, what they do, what type of content will be relevant, and making sure that in each of these pieces of content, even if we're talking about an Instagram story, even if we're talking about TikTok, do they reflect at the very least one business goal? If not, it's not relevant. Because I think it's easy for anyone to wake up and say, oh, it would be great to do this Instagram story. It would be great to do this TikTok, to do this challenge. The World Cup just ended. And, if you want to join the bandwagon and talking about the World Cup, is it relevant for your organization? Why are we talking about Messi? Why are we talking about Spain? And that thing is very key. And so if you do relevant content with a consistent schedule, you are going to start seeing conversion. What you're looking for is not viral content, but it's really the consistency and relevance. If you're able to match those two, and if your product as well is a nice one, because so at times it's the product as well. If your product is not addressing a pain point of a target group, then no marketing, communication, content strategy is going to do anything for you. So it's a lot of different things at the same time. It's the effectiveness of your product, and then when it comes to content, it's how you match consistency and relevance.
Now I'll quote that. I'm going to quote that and make a post out of it. But I think also now you have also hinted at the fact that obviously we're talking about content strategy, but also I wanted to ask, like, how would you say that creatives today should apply content strategy to themselves or to their own work?
To promote themselves, in order to get gigs, I think that's the first thing. But it's not easy because, you know, I do appreciate, I do enjoy the work that I do as a photographer a lot.
Yeah.
I've been exhibited 4 times. I've never done a solo exhibition, but then the reason why I'm still doing strategy is because that is in 2026 at least the most effective way for me to pay my bills.
Yeah.
However, though, as the creative industry is growing, there's definitely a need to see more of the creative industry in action, and people that have the means to give work to creatives, they're going to go for the ones that we see, the ones that are visible, the ones that can be trusted, the ones that are easy to work with. Regardless of what that is, like, they need to have access to, they need to be able, like, to go to an office and say, this is the person that we're going to have for this event.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to make sure that all of that is accessible. Who are you? What is it that you do? How can we have access to your work? You have to do that for yourself. And in the day and age of, in this era of AI, now you don't even have an excuse. And so, sure, you don't want, you know, your materials to look like ChatGPT, but then how can you make sure for yourself that you have a Google Drive folder ready for any circumstances, you know?
Yeah.
You have a profile picture, you have a bio, you have a CV, and then you have imagery of your art.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it starts there.
Yeah.
And then I think some people, I think they want to have managers, and I think some very successful artists do have managers. I've seen that.
Yeah.
But before having a manager, you have to do
yourself.
You have to do it yourself, you know, to the point where a manager would like to represent you. So there's something that you have to do yourself. It is what it is.
Yeah. 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 I think just also on all of, because that's kind of like also like our main people that I'm trying to speak to, because when you are starting out, you probably don't have enough money. You're just trying to sustain yourself and like build your business or grow it. You don't have any money to like hire somebody to be a manager for you. And also, depending on the kind of, you know, work that you're doing, to some of those things at the beginning, like having a manager might not be the most relevant thing. I think, you know, if you're a musician or if you're an artist, there's certain things where you would associate like having a manager to over certain kind of, maybe more like as a strategist, for instance. I think it might be a little more abstract to like have a manager for, but then also now just on the things that you need to do by yourself, which includes like your portfolio, which is something you mentioned, like having places where people can see your work. For someone like you have documentary filmmaking, you have photography you have worked on, you're also a storyteller, you're also a strategist. So when it comes to building your portfolio, how have you gone about that? Do you have different like portfolio pieces for like all these different aspects of you, or did you combine them? Because I think there's creatives who are kind of like multi-talented or multi-potentialites, and you have like these different things that you do, but you don't know how to present them like in one front. What do you advise them to do?
That's a very broad question. First of all, no, I separate things. I've been grouping things, and at times I think you kind of have to, but no, I separate things to the point I even have, you know, different Instagram accounts. I've decided that at times, it doesn't happen often, but at times I am approached as a photographer, and so I got to a point where I'm refusing any commercial photography. For me, my goal is to do the work of a photographer. It's either for Imigani or is to be exhibited or is to be part of a publication, so that I can do it as an artist. And so for people to get that, the kind of aesthetics that I like, they can see for themselves. And so it has become very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's either you like it or it doesn't resonate with you, right? I feel like some people that are interested in my work in photography, like I've been commissioned last year for portraits of Gael Faye, you know Gael Faye?
Yes.
And it was portraits of him in Nyamirambo, and the people that commissioned me, I don't think they're interested in what I'm doing with, my Instagram stories and doing my vlogging and all of that.
Yeah.
And they have this very, they I think the kind of work that they enjoy looking at is street photography, candid photography, exhibitions, things like that. And so with that, I had to make sure that I dedicated things, yeah. And so now to the portfolio, for sure, like who is reaching out to me?
Yeah.
Is it for strategic work? Is it strategy with a creative edge? Is it photography? And so so there's that. But I think for myself also, to have an understanding of what I do, I realized that it's going to be impossible for me to make a living with one career or one job.
Yeah.
I try to negotiate for salaries that I aspire to. It hasn't really worked. Negotiation has been possible on how to accommodate things, but then or maybe it says a lot about the time that we are in, and for me that is the gig economy. And so with that I thought, okay, so I can work as a strategist, I can work as a photographer. I've worked as a videographer. I no longer work as a videographer. I feel that technology has evolved and times have changed, and the way videos are done today is not something that I can do. But I'm still involved with it as a creative director at times. And then there's the work that I would like to do with Imigani, being a living archive of the creative industry. And so the way I think about it now is to think about having a mind map, and I think that is important for a creative. And so if you have those different things that you can do, be more specific, as opposed to people saying you as one creative being able to do different things, because the problem with that is that you are going to be, that it goes back to what I was saying before, you're going to be hired as a creative that can do different things, as opposed to give value to each of these skills. And so this is where you lose money, because if people think like, oh, but she has worked as a videographer, she can arrange herself. Like, I don't know how people think about it, but typically video content takes a lot of resources. And so now I'll probably subcontract someone and also subcontract a crew, and I've worked at a loss so many times because of that. And so it's very important that you are, I don't like using the word branding yourself, but that's kind of what it is. And how all of these things are respected. So you need to have your mind map, where it starts with that big circle, which is your general know-how, and then you have those different branches, and those different branches all of them have portfolios or those areas. I'm saying all of this, I didn't come up with this. I saw this in the platform called Masterclass. It's quite expensive, but it's good. The content is good.
I've seen ads, but I've never like actually used the platform.
I used it for a year. It's great. And so there's this former Teen Vogue editor, Ellen Waltherworth, and she said that she got it from Tara Banks, I think. And I think to me that's really relevant for creatives. You have your general expertise, and then you have those branches for these different areas, and each of these areas now you have to be more specific. And so it helped me to think about the type of photography I like to do, the type of strategy I like to do. I think people come to me specifically for content strategy and not marketing, for example. And so doing that allowed me to get more precise, and I also try to be as specific on social media and my communication. And getting back to what you were saying about having a portfolio, having looking for a full-time job. I put my portfolio on LinkedIn. Eventually, after a month, TORI got in touch with me. They DM'd me. That's how we met. I had to do an assignment. We negotiated, and then eventually I joined. And so it has worked in a way that was a lot more effective than I thought it was going to be. And so to me, I had to go through all of that thinking, what is it that I do and who's going to benefit from that work and how can I be clear about it?
I think because there's this thing of, from what you're saying, like with the mind map concept, it's like you said like there's a general group of things that you can do in this end, and then you kind of branch out. But then even when you branch out, so it's like, I don't know, you're a creative person who works on, let's say, visuals, for instance, and then you have like photography here, you have design here, but it's not just photography here, it's like a specific type of photography, documentary photography, and there's another kind of, you do strategy, but not just strategy, you do content strategy. So it's like, because I'm trying to reconcile this concept with, we generally see certain people as like generalists and specialists, and I've seen a lot of arguments around which one is better to be in terms of like branding. And there's someone I used to follow who talks a lot about like niching down, like you have to be a specialist, but then you have other skills that feed into that one skill. So it's like you are let's say you are a website designer, but you also have like skills in copywriting, in communications and all of that. But when you're positioning yourself online, you call yourself a website designer, but you come in with like copywriting experience and let's say copywriting experience, photography experience, videography. You know how to do all of these things, but you don't call yourself those things. You call yourself like a website designer, but because you have all of these other skills, you bring it into your website like design work. So I've heard that argument, but then also what you are saying, like through that mind map, it sounds a bit different. Like it's not necessarily bringing the things into one, because that could also lead to situations where, as you mentioned, you are hired for one thing, but then they say that, oh, Cynthia can do photography, she can do this, so we'll just give her everything to do under that one salary. Like,
at times I think you do. I think I cannot go to places and being like, hi, my name is Cynthia. I'm a photo videographer, but I still work on video content as a creative director. I'm the founder of Imigani. I'm a photographer.
I think they call them they call it being a
slasher.
Slasher.
I do see myself as a slasher. A multi-hyphenate maybe is more elegant. But I think if I had to put everything into one label, maybe I would say creative director. I think it depends. Again, it depends who you're talking to. And there will definitely be places when it comes to work, I will just say like, I'm a head of strategist. As I said
so
before.
It does change. It changes from person to person.
It kind of does. But what I would say is that niching down, understand that. But I think if you niche down, being in this market, I am sure that you're doing many other things to get by. Maybe you have a boutique, I don't know. But I think the market is too small for us, at least creatives, to niche that down, right? As I said, like when I moved to Rwanda, I didn't know that I was going to stay as long as I did. And my plan was that eventually I was going to go back in the UK and work as a video editor. That's what I wanted to do. And it was just not possible. And all of these things that I'm doing now, it kind of happened by accident, because one day I had to get money and I tried something. And so I did try things that didn't work out. I've been a sound operator for one gig. Never again. It's horrible. You have to hold a thing like that. No, I did that for a whole documentary. Never again. But just to say that every new hat that I've been adding always has been because I needed money at the time. Someone said like, I think you can do a great job.
And the money was attached to that new hat.
Yeah, and I was like, you know what, let me try. And so most recently, like for 2026, I would say is being a moderator. Like I tried that thing that I did because it was for Imigani, it was my own project. I didn't have any other choice. But recently, there's a thing that I've been approached for. I was like, sure, I've done it twice for Imigani. The experience was so nice. Sure, there's room for growth. But then, new skill unlocked.
Yeah.
And then we go like this.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate. I think that's kind of like one thing when it comes to, so the person that I said I heard this from about like niching down, they don't work in an African like context, or at least in a Rwandan context. So it's like that was the whole point of even just this podcast, like speaking to people who, I think some of these business lessons they apply, but they don't always, like, depending on the context you are living in, sometimes you have to, like, it doesn't always work, because as I think we're having this conversation before we even started like the podcast, I have also, people know me for different things, depending on how you met me the first time or where you came across my work. But there's also a lot of things that I do behind the scenes that I don't put anywhere. It's just, I don't know, maybe I was working on a certain project with someone and then they said they needed something extra, and I'm like, they're going to pay somebody else for this. Going to pay somebody else for this thing. I've done it before and it's not my main thing. It's not what people know me for, but I can do it. So I'm like, I just pitch to them like, yeah, I know how to use, I can do websites too. And they're like, oh yeah, show me an example. I'm like, I'll show you my own. That's the only website I've done, but I'll show you that. And if you want to hire me, then based on that, then you can. And through that, I've gotten like gigs for things that I don't like traditionally do or normally do. I only do it for myself. I don't do it for clients. But yeah, when there's like some nice money sitting there and I can do it, doesn't mean that because I have done it now, I have to define myself by that thing. Like, okay, I've done a website design for you, that means I am now a website designer, and I have to add it to, like, as another slash on my website. But like, just through that, because of what I've done for that person, they might recommend me to someone else, and it's not anywhere on my bio, but just because of that one gig I've done, they will recommend me to someone else, and that new someone else would see me as a website designer. So like, depending on who I'm speaking to, as you said, different people see me or have interacted with me as different things. So I think that definitely applies like in our context sometimes, because certain niches also, depending on the target, like your market, certain things are like, maybe in the UK, for instance, as you said, being a video editor like attracts a certain amount of money and you can live off like what you get from that. But maybe doing that here does not attract enough for you to pay your rent and live on it. So you do that, you get that money, pay your rent, but you need to do something else to get some extra money to like, live. So yeah, I think now that you're saying, I'm just thinking a lot about like context. Like, it really matters.
Context is everything. I think in this market, like,
yeah, it really matters. Some things they
and
just
that context also is written nowhere. So
it's something it's through your experience.
It's through your experience, and your experience honestly is going to take you far. That's why it's going to take you far, because I think I was not thinking about those things before, and now that has been 11, it's almost 12 years that I'm here. I realized that a lot of things, if it's been a success, is because of everything that I've learned. And, it just, at times when it comes to work, people talk about organizational knowledge. And I think it's the same about Kigali, if you take Kigali as an organization. You carry that with you everywhere you go. But then another mainstream culture, I'm going to give as an example, Kiki Palmer. She's been saying before that doing a lot of content has been a way for her to demonstrate what she can actually do to get all the kind of different jobs that she has, you know. She has her podcast, she do many different things, but I follow her podcast and she's very funny, and I feel that her character, she brings that everywhere she goes. Being an actress, being a performer, being an MC. And I think for me, the lesson in that, sure, we say context is key, and there are things that apply there as a celebrity in the US that you cannot apply here. But I think for me, the fact that there's stuff that you can actually do and you share online can actually, if you get the eyeballs, it's going to get you your next gig. And the gig might not come as something you normally do. Like, people would see different things from what you are sharing to, like, maybe you are sharing a video like showing people something you are doing, but then somebody is watching it and say, I like how she talks and I want her to be a host for something or MC, because she's just, for, as you said, Kiki Palmer is funny. So maybe that's what somebody saw in that video and decided that they wanted to hire her to host, I don't know, maybe the next BT or you know. So like things like that. And it's just, as you said, I think also, I was also speaking with this to someone else who was on the podcast, though. I think there is
there's something that would connect all the things that you do, like together. And maybe what's it called? It may not be like a tangible thing, but the fact that you are doing it means that if you are doing, I don't know, you are a website designer today, you're a photographer tomorrow, you are a strategic thinker today, there's always something that connects it, that is because it is you that is doing it. And that's something that people pick up on, that you may not, even you yourself may not see what that thing is, but there's something that the fact that it's you that is doing it is what is connecting it. It might be the way you do it, the grace you carry when you are doing all of those different things, that people see that and they like it. You know, they how do I put it? Your personality with doing all of those things, as you say, even just being funny. Like, oh, this person doesn't take this thing like too, I don't know, they're not too corporate about it. Like, they are just jolly, and I like how they speak, and I want them to, you know, in the websites you do, it might also be reflected, even if you don't know that. You're not doing it consciously, but just because of the kind of person you are, it reflects in the kind of work, in all of the work that you do. And like, that's the thing that ties all of those things together, that people might be like hiring you for. And I think that's what your personal brand really is. It's that thing that ties all of those things like together.
For me, it's all about the mind map.
Yeah.
Because the mind map, you have branches and everything is interconnected.
Yeah.
And I think like if you understand how to do that, is going to be it's going to help.
Yeah.
And it took me time like to actually get there and to see how everything is just connected.
Yeah.
So that you know, you have your way of thinking into everything that you do, because otherwise you also have to be clear on what you can do and what you cannot do. For example, people have been very tempted to approach me as a translator for French, and yet translation is an actual job.
Yeah.
Just things like that. And having a clear sense of purpose, knowing your why. I know it sounds cheesy when I say that, but I think it gives direction, because you always have something to fall back on.
Yeah. That makes sense. And I think I
was going to say also that I think for me, I really enjoyed everything that I did as I was ending my master's in documentary making, and I was really attending a lot of events, screenings, festivals, where you could see a lot of different forms challenging the mainstream. But then being here, I felt like it was not as easy on how that very specific thing would be possible. And I talked about how with the landscape of social media evolving and how kind of everything is becoming content. People, they don't really hearing it, but it's kind of what is happening. And the reason why we call everything content is because we watch everything from screen, be it a laptop, your phone, an iPad, and as we are speaking, there's the 4th edition of Kigali Junction Film Festival. And for each of these films, for example, they have a social media presence as well, because that's just how you get eyeballs today. And I think for me, because it is with social media management and strategy that I'm able to make a living today, and I think in the future, this is how it's going to reconcile everything and still kind of be involved with that thing that attracted me 15 years ago. And so to give another example from the mainstream, I love everything Issa Rae, right? Maybe not the acting, but then she the movies are not that great. But you know, she started on YouTube. She had that web series called The Adventures of an Awkward Black Girl. She started with that. That thing became eventually Insecure on HBO. And with the fame that she got out of Insecure, she started doing so many businesses. And so I think she has a pizzeria. I think she has a hair care line. I think she has, she does wine. She does so many different things. But then if we stick to content, she has signed, I think, a deal with TikTok to the same way she's been doing her web series on YouTube. She worked with film directors doing that content on TikTok. And so for me to think that something as cinematic being on TikTok, like what does it say about the era that we are in, and the fact that we scroll content like that even for series.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm very interested in the growth of that era, of that type of content, and how everything is becoming hybrid, and hopefully in everything that I appreciate when it comes to cinema, documentary making, how eventually I'll be able to invest my craft into that space a bit more.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I think now, just also I think you've had so many experiences across different, how do I put it, different fields. So, and also different kinds of organizations that you have worked with. You've worked with, with the government, with RDB, you've worked with an international NGO, you've also worked now with an agency, and then you have your own independent practice. So across all of these different things, what have been over the years, what have been the business lessons that you've learned that you feel are cross-cutting, across all of these different industries?
That I'm not a business person.
Yeah, that.
I feel like I have ideas.
Yeah.
So many beautiful ideas that are just not sustainable, and so I'm learning the hard way on how to do that.
Yeah.
But talking about Imigani started as a passion project, and I think I was doing a lot of I was portraying a lot of creatives, and I needed a space to do that. And so I was doing it on my personal platforms, and then eventually I started a podcast. So the name in French is Le Podcast de Cynthia Butare, but then the fact that it felt self-centered, where I realized actually it needs a different space. And so eventually the name Imigani came about, which means Proverbs in Kinyarwanda.
Mm-hmm.
And from a strategy standpoint,
Yeah.
now it was this idea of having a random name. I really wanted to have that,
Mm-hmm.
because it stands for something that it's from here.
Yeah.
That's one. Second, I needed a name in Kinyarwanda that is easy to pronounce, easy to spell,
Yeah.
and that you can find on social media. I could have as social media handle.
Yeah.
And so Instagram is just at Imigani, and which is not easy to have in Kinyarwanda, in the sense that there's a time I tried to have a communication agency, and the name of it was Ikirekezo, which means vision.
Yeah.
But I was not going to go far with that. So I love Imigani as a name, but also the poetry that comes with it.
Yeah.
And at the very beginning, it was just that. My pictures of these creatives,
Mm-hmm.
if I had stories, and then I had to become a bit more precise with what I was doing with it. And today in 2026, what I would say is that it's a living archive of the creative industry.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that, you have a cultural calendar. And I think that's been what has been the most successful, maybe, in the way people has been sharing.
Yeah.
I have just started a directory of artists.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a way of seeing the CV of all of these creatives living here. I have started Imigani Talks, so it's once a month.
Yeah.
And that was a way of having something in person for the community to gather.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done 2 editions so far, and one with Kigali Cine Junction. And the reason behind was simply because most of the work that I was doing was on Instagram. And so eventually, because people had so much to say, and then they would just share emojis on Instagram, and I would just get a lot of discussions, in person. And I thought, I really want to get out of my screen. And so it took 2 years to get there. But we're here with 12 Degrés and Corn Wine to do the content. And so, so I said the calendar, the directory, Imigani Talks. I want to have a Imigani guide now, which is supposed to recommend places where to go and I'd like to have different categories of places. Recommending people to go to places like Gika, L'Espace, but also a good place where to have random coffee, where to buy craftsmanship. And so again, what strategy helped me with that is to have all of these ideas, but as one, you know. And so now the next step for me is going to find funds.
I was going to ask, like, is there a business side to like Imigani, actually? So
initially, because Imigani is also a word that people use for storytelling, I thought, like, this is going to be my business to sell to sell storytelling, creation of content, strategy and everything. And I think it has created confusion. And so now that I work as staff for TORI, the question now is whether I should remove all of that work from Imigani to truly be an archive. And I think that when it comes to culture, when it comes to the arts, I think it's kind of common practice to ask for funds. And so, because it serves the society, and so this is where I like to get more advice, recommended, because positioning it that way is new. But this is definitely serving, because I do see people going to those events based on what they have seen on the calendar. And so it needs funds because you need to have people running the platform. For now, it's a one-woman band. And there's a need for a community manager. There's a need for a copywriter. There's a need for someone running the website. And now I'm learning how to find the right language to attract those funds for Imigani now to be sustainable. Because every time I have a new thing, and for example, TORI, I had it as a new job. I stopped for 3 months because I needed to understand, to settle and everything. So,
Wow. I think that nicely leads into my final question, which is, I think when it comes to like just being a creative, there is a movement I think everybody feels like the point you should get to is becoming like, leaving the shackles of employment. And I mean, I don't see them as shackles, but like leaving the shackles of employment and like starting your own thing, becoming a creative.
I thought you were going to ask me about the logo.
Well, that logo, we'll have that discussion behind the scene. I really love the branding, as a branding enthusiast, but also I think everybody's always like moving from, or wanting to move from, being employed as a creative and like starting their own thing. But I think you're also proving that does not necessarily have to be the case, because you have gone in and out, like having your own thing and being employed, having your own thing, being employed, and now you are also working with TORI. So what has led to the decisions when you have decided to like move from one to another? And do you think that should always be the ultimate goal, like to go from being an employee as a creative to having your own thing?
No, I think everything happened. Everything that has happened, it came with an opportunity. RGB came up with the opportunity. I applied for it. I got into the assignment. I got hired, and I did it for 4 years. And then I got an opportunity with Y Labs, and eventually my contract ended. And in the meantime, I thought, like, let me be self-employed, and so I had to provide EBM invoices. So I registered Imigani because that was where I was active at the time. And so I was under the name of Imigani. I was getting paid, but then I think it explains a bit why there's been a bit confusion, because it has not been thought through from the get-go, and so it's only now that I can say it's an archive. And with TORI is because they approached me, but before that, I made the intentional move of having my portfolio online to get that opportunity. And I think for me, I don't see myself as being a business person, to be fair. It's just that for sure there's a way I'd like to work on content. There are things that I stand for, and so that's why at times I find myself being self-employed. But I think with that, maybe the end goal, I think for me, I'm more interested about the project that I'm going to be working with, because I feel like now things are becoming so hybrid that the contract that I have with TORI, though being staff, to some extent it does feel like consultancy. I want to grow Imigani, yes. And so the reason why I don't want to grow a communication agency is because I do appreciate the work that I do as a strategist a lot. And for now, the most effective way of doing that is supporting an agency. Because if I grow my own thing, I'm going to be absorbed by the day-to-day for sure. And I think the quality of strategy comes by the time that you spend on the strategy and really looking at global benchmarks and seeing how everything connects. And besides strategy and business goals is also taste. I think that people come to me because there's a level of creative direction that they're expecting, and so that comes with a sense of aesthetics and just how things kind of gel together. But then again, like, if you want to be an entrepreneur, I think you can fall into the trap of, looking for cheap talent at the beginning because you don't have enough funds. And so I feel that this is effective, the work that I'm doing as a strategist. So I don't think there's a right answer for anyone, but it's just that by trial and error, I started finding what the equation is going to look like for me. But then in 10 years' time, maybe it's not being staff, maybe it's building reputation to a way where I'm going to be consulting for different firms. And what I would like to make sure is that strategy is always going to be something that I can package and sell, because I feel like it's something tangible in a way to make a living for myself. And I hope that I can have that almost as a cushion so that I can do some of the creative stuff that I'd like to do, which is being exhibited as a photographer and eventually going back to documentary filmmaking. That
makes sense. Ooh, I really have a lot more questions to ask you, but I think we'll have to come back for a part two to this conversation, so we can. I don't want to rush it. I want us to go deep into it. But yeah, for today, thank you so much for sharing. I really want to go on, but thank you so much for sharing. We'll come back to discuss more, especially about Imigani. But yeah, I mean, for the people who are listening, who are watching, where can they find you and your work online?
Yeah, as I said, me, I separate. I have those different handles. No, so Imigani, as I said, is very easy at Imigani. So you can find it on Instagram. And as for myself, at Cynthia Butare. If you're interested in my photography, you'll find in the bio, you can dig more. You can dig for more. That's it.
I'll add all of those in the show notes and the video description as well. Thank you so much for being a guest, for gracing this podcast and sharing all of these insights.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate.
Very happy to. And to everyone who is listening, who is watching, thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I hope you found it very insightful, because I did. And hopefully we'll have a part 2 of this conversation so you can learn more insights from Cynthia's experience. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share these videos with other creatives who you feel might find some insights from what we have shared today. And see you on the next episode of the Lucreative Africa Podcast. Thank you. Bye.